Have you ever wondered how flight instructors manage to balance razor-sharp discipline and genuine encouragement, while also teaching you how to conquer the skies and learn how to fly an airplane? Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the secret playbook that us instructors have that most pilots never knew existed. If you've ever been overwhelmed by airplane chaos or doubted your abilities to fly, this video is for you. Because once you uncover these tactics, you'll never see flight training in the same way again. If you're new around here, my name's Hayden Teteak. I've been a flight instructor for almost 2 years, and I have over 1,000 hours of flight training given in the airplane. Whether you are a brand new student pilot or an experienced aviator, today we're unveiling the secret playbook that flight instructors have to shape you into a confident and resilient pilot. Our goal here is simple. We're going to illustrate the techniques that flight instructors use to balance rigorous training with maintaining student encouragement and motivation. By the end of this video, you're going to have a clearer picture of how instructors design lesson plans, why they test your flight limits, and how they manage your emotional ups and downs during those challenging flights. But I'm not just going to tell you the what. You're also going to discover why your flight instructor adjusts their approach based on your stress level as a student, why they debrief you the way they do during a tough flight, and why they seem to know exactly when to offer you praise versus crack the whip. The overarching theme of this video is the psychological aspects of flight training. These psychological strategies are the subtle yet powerful methods that flight instructors use to build trust and resilience. If you stick around to the end of this video, we're going to cover how these strategies form the backbone of flight instruction, helping you cope with fear, frustration, and fatigue. When these strategies are done right, they create a safe space in the airplane, a place where mistakes become learning opportunities, and where frustrations become stepping stones to greater confidence. Before we dive into these strategies, I want to share a personal story from my experience as a flight instructor. It's about overcoming a challenge I recently faced with one of my students, and I think it's going to show you just how critical trust and resilience are on both sides of the cockpit. Just a few weeks ago, I was teaching one of my students crosswind landings, and no matter how many times we tried, no matter how many different ways we tried, they just couldn't get it down, and we ended up having slammer after slammer, and it was just frustrating. The students' anxiety levels spiked with every approach, even when it was just a slight to moderate crosswind. This led to overcorrecting the airplane and eventually frustrations on both sides. I'll be honest with you, as an instructor, I was really struggling with the decision, do we push on or do we pull back? On one hand, I wanted to build confidence in my student, but on the other hand, I had to avoid flooding them with this stress. After a few more rough attempts, I decided to call it there, and we ended for the day. I decided we needed a reset as a group. I called the lesson, and we ended up having a heart-to-heart deep debrief on the ground. Rather than focus on every mistake, we focused on why the student felt uneasy and how we could break this kind of approach into smaller, more manageable steps. That debrief turned out to be an absolute game changer. Once I gave that student a clear mental framework, simplifying crosswind landings, they began to trust the process. On the next flight, I saw a huge jump in their confidence. It wasn't just their technique that improved, it was their entire mindset. And that in turn also relieved a lot of the stress that I was feeling as the instructor. This experience reminded me that we as instructors also face our own challenges. Finding that balance between pushing our students to grow and also maintaining a supportive environment. By staying calm, adapting our methods, and reinforcing trust, we can help students push past their own barriers while keeping our own composure. Let's talk about a scenario that happens more often than you think. The flight instructor's dilemma. Picture this. You've had a super frustrating flight with a student. Maybe their landings are just not hitting the spot. They're having some slammers, or they keep mixing up radio calls. The student is stressed, you're stressed. Overall, it's just a recipe for conflict. At this point, you as the instructor have to make a critical decision. Do I push the student harder, or do I back off? The right balance is crucial. Pushing too hard can damage morale and trust, but being too lenient can slow progress or lead to complacency. This is where emotional resilience comes into play. Instructors train themselves to maintain their composure even when they're on edge. They know how to handle the students' frustrations as well as their own. This sets the tone for the rest of flight training. If you snap or show excessive frustration in the cockpit, it is going to completely undermine the trust that you've built with your student. It's going to make the student second-guess every decision that they make in the airplane. The obstacle isn't just the student's performance, it's also the instructor's internal battle to remain cool, collected, and supportive. This is arguably one of the toughest aspects of being a flight instructor, balancing high standards with an encouraging atmosphere. Trust is the foundation of any student and instructor relationship. It paves the way for open communication, honest feedback, and an overall safe learning environment. When students feel safe, they're way more likely to take calculated risks, or ask stupid questions, or share their concern. These are all essential ingredients to becoming a better pilot. But how do we, as instructors, build that trust? Here's a few core methods. Number 1, positive reinforcement. We need to celebrate the small wins. After a smooth landing or nailing a radio call or a maneuver, tell them that they're doing a good job. Celebrate it. Number 2, constructive criticism. Rather than just flat out criticizing the student, zone in on specific areas for improvement so they can grow without feeling attacked. Number 3, active listening. Pay close attention to their emotional and mental state. If you sense they're hitting a wall, adjust the lesson plan. Move on. Come back to it later. Number 4, setting clear expectations. Let them know exactly what's coming in flight training. Whether you're going back to maneuvers or planning along cross country, let them know what's coming. This will help them become mentally prepared for that lesson. These strategies build resilience not only for the student, but also for the instructor. This helps the emotional roller coaster that is flight training stay on track. All right, now let's talk about the big moment, the intense preparation leading up to a check ride. Students often think that they're the only ones that are feeling stressed out and worried about this. But let me tell you, as an instructor, I'm often just as stressed, if not more stressed, for my students' check rides than they are. I have a lot riding on the line, and I need to see them. I want to see them succeed. When every instructor is learning to become an instructor, they have to create lesson plans. I have a binder of lesson plans that is about this thick. I think it's over 1,000 pages long. It's full of all of the lessons that I can teach as an instructor. I also take notes on my students, what they're great at, what they're struggling with, and notes on their individual learning style. Before any big check ride, every instructor is going to review what standards the student needs to be in for each and every maneuver. The student's weaknesses, notes that I have taken or other instructors have taken about what the student lacks at. Have we brought that up to standards? On the day of the check ride, the emotional state of the student. The student's going to be a stressed out mess most of the time. Anticipating these stresses, planning mental resets, or I like to plan little pep talks that I'm going to have with them. And then finally, just the test day logistics. The student is often going to handle scheduling the check ride, but the instructor might handle a lot of other things like getting the student a plane, checking the weather last minute, finding a space for them to do the oral portion of the check ride. One key factor is about how all of these aspects tie back to just building trust. If you don't trust your instructor's guidance, you're going to second guess every decision you make on check ride day. This is going to lead to mistakes. That's why everything from day one rapport to that final week of check ride prep feeds into this moment. Everything we've discussed, the instructor's dilemma, emotional resilience, and trust building culminates here. It's a behind the scenes scramble that you rarely get to see, but it shapes the entire check ride experience. Bringing all of this together, and we have unlocked the flight instructor's playbook, revealing how we juggle tough, structured training while also keeping students encouraged and motivated. We've seen the obstacles that we face, balancing frustration with the need for high standards, and the behind the scenes prep that goes into a major check ride. At the heart of it all are emotional resilience and trust building. A flight instructor isn't just an instructor. They're teachers, they're coaches, they're mentors. A lot of times they're therapists. We read students' body language, sense their stress, and adapt what we're doing to keep them growing. I want to leave you with a challenge. Whether you're a student or an instructor, the next time you're in the cockpit, I want you to reflect on these strategies. Notice when praise is offered. Notice how, why, and when a debrief is offered after a tough flight, and how you both handle these setbacks. I want you to ask yourself, how can I use this knowledge to stay more engaged? Or if you're an instructor, keep your students engaged. Are we providing each other clear feedback on what works and what doesn't? And finally, what can we do to cultivate emotional resilience so that these frustrations can become stepping stones rather than a brick wall? If you thought this video was insightful, hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, and subscribe. And finally, remember that your success in the airplane is about a lot more than just stick and rudder skills. It's about building the right mindset, relationships, and resilience to make yourself a better, safer pilot.